All right, so let's start by factoring. When we say factor, and we want to find the factors of 12. And my factors of 12, I heard somebody say 2 and 6. But there's one before it, right? 1 times 12. What are other factors of 12? 3 and 4. Yeah, we have 1 and 12. We have 3 and 4. Is there anything else? No. Those are all the factors of 12. So when we look at standard form, we got from standard form by multiplying two binomials. So let's look at this example. We're going to multiply x plus 4 times x minus 3. Hopefully you guys remember this from freshman year. If not, I'm going over it again. No problem, because it's been a while. When we factor, some of you guys use the box method. We're not going to use the box method. We're going to use double distributive. And what that does is you're basically multiplying this first term by this whole thing. So we're going to do x times x, which gives us x squared, and then x times the second number in the second parentheses, which is negative 3, which is negative 3x. Then we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to start with that positive 4. And we're going to do positive 4 times x. That gives us positive 4x. And then positive 4 times negative 3 will give us a negative 12. Any questions so far? All we're doing is multiplying. X times x, x times negative 3. And then 4 times x, 4 times negative 3. And then we're going to combine like terms. Most of the time, the ones that we're going to combine are nice and together in the middle. So when we add those two together, we get negative 3 plus 4x, and that gives us a positive 1x. Do we have to write that one down? No. So I'm going to erase it. And then I'm going to bring down the rest, which is x squared and negative 12. And notice how we went from factored form to standard form. So when we go from factored form to, or when we go from standard form to factored form, we're basically undoing what we did. And I don't think any of you guys had me last year, their freshman year. But I used to talk about the bunk bed. Did any of your teachers talk about the bunk bed? No? That's all right. So the first thing we're going to do when we go backwards is we're going to put a 1 wherever it needs to be. Remember, if there's no number, then there's a 1. And then we're going to identify our A, our B, and our C. So my A, my B, and my C. And when it's in standard form, your A is next to the x squared, your B is next to the x, and your C is your constant. So this is basically your A, your B, and your C. Your A is a positive 1, your B is a positive 1, and your C is a negative 12. Any questions so far? All right, here's where the fun starts. We're going to first multiply my A times my C, and we're going to put the number here. So in this case, it's 1 times 12, which is negative 12, I'm sorry, which is a negative 12. And then we're going to set up our little bunk bed. I call it my bunk bed. I'll tell you guys the story why later. But whatever's remaining is that positive 1. That one is going to go on the bottom. And it's like B for bottom. So in this area, we're going to look for the factors of this number. And this part is going to save you a lot of time. I learned it from Mr. Edwards. If this is a minus sign, that means that we're going to subtract our factors. When we subtract our factors, we're going to get this number on the bottom. And this number on the bottom, that sign, is going to tell us the sign of the bigger number. Questions so far? No? All right, here we go. So what are the factors of 12? We already talked about them, right? 1 and 12. Remember, we're subtracting them. So when we say 12 minus 1, does that give us this positive 1 down here? No. So because it's not giving us that sum or that difference, then we don't need 1 and 12. So let's try some other factors. What are other factors? 2 and 6. So let's subtract those factors. 6 minus 2, does that give us 1? No. So we're going to try other factors. What are other factors? 3 and 4. If we subtract those numbers, does that give us 1? Boom. So then these are our winners. And then we go back. The sign of my bigger number is going to be positive. So which one's bigger, 3 or 4? 4. So this one's going to be positive and this one's going to be negative. So I'm going to set up my equation over here. We've got f of x is equal to x and x. This number that we have here, we're going to put it in here, minus 3. And then this number here, we're going to put it over here. That's going to be positive 4. And our a is 1, so we don't have to put our a. Now there is an extra step. The reason we're not doing it with this one is because my a is equal to 1. Now if I come over here, this is called the slide and divide method. We divide by a. And in this case, it's 3 divided by 1 because my a is 1. And this is 4 divided by 1. But what's 3 divided by 1 and what's 4 divided by 1? Negative 3 and positive 4, right? So it's exactly the same thing. And that's why we don't do it when your a is 1. Exactly the same. Any questions so far? All right, we're not going to go to the extent of solving for it. We're just going to factor today. So let's go to the second example. Example number 2. And we've got f of x is equal to 2x squared minus 5x minus 7. Okay, we're going to go to factor form. Let's label our a, our b, and our c. A, B, and C. And the reason I like to put it on the side, it eliminates us for getting those negative signs. So this will be a positive 2. This is a negative 5. And this is a negative 7. Oh, I keep using that green. Sorry, guys. Positive 2. Where's that better? Negative 5. All right, so what two numbers are we going to multiply? 2 and negative 7. So we're multiplying a times c. 2 and negative 7 gives us negative 14. And then the number on the bottom is going to be negative 5. So let's look closer to this. This sign is negative, which means we're going to subtract our factors. And then this sign is negative, which means my bigger number is going to have a negative. And in this area, we're going to have our factors. All right, so what are the factors of 14? 1 and 14. Now, if we subtract 1 and 14, do we get 5? No. So let's try some other factors. 2 and 7. When we subtract them, do we get 5? Yes. So then those are our winners. Our bigger number is going to be negative. So the 7, since it's bigger than 2, will be negative, and my 2 will be, we've got f of x. Now I'm getting, okay, give me a second, guys. Okay, I'll have to rethink that one. But the a value doesn't go up here because it's being taken care of here. Oopsie. All right, let's go on to the next example, and I'll figure out right now. All right, so on this next one, and on any other one that we do from now on, the very first step for any problem where we factor is to find the GCF. You guys know what the GCF is? What is it? What's the GCF? Yes, the greatest common factor. So let's write down the greatest common factor. Now, do you need to do it? Not necessarily, you'll have the same answer, but you'll end up working with huge numbers that you'll have to factor, and you don't want to do that. You want to find the smallest numbers possible. Because remember, we always want to work smarter, not harder. All right, so for my first example, to find the GCF, we've got 4x squared plus 2. Now, if we look at those two numbers, what's the biggest number they have in common? What can we divide both of those numbers by? 2. So we can divide this number by 2, and we can divide this one by 2. Because we can divide 2 by both of them, we can factor it out. So then it's going to look like this. Whatever we factored out, we're going to put outside the parentheses. And after we divide is what's going to be inside the parentheses. So 4x squared divided by 2 is 2x squared. And 2 divided by 2 is a positive 1. And that's how you find out your GCF. Question so far? All right, let's do them with an x. Let's say we have 3x squared plus 9x. So 3x squared plus 9x. We can divide by 3. What else can we divide each one by? What do they both have? They both have an x. So we can also divide by an x. Let me put it in a, so divide by 3x, divide by 3x. So then whatever we divide it by will go on the outside. And we've got 3 divided by 3, that gives us 1. X squared divided by x, that leaves us with just 1x. 9 divided by 3 is a positive 3. And then x divided by x, they cancel each other out. So that's what's left. All right, so using GCF, we're going to do this example. We've got 4x squared plus 14x plus 6. We always want to look for GCF. So let's write down GCF. Do we have one? 2. So we can divide every single one by 2. So we've got 2 times, and then we want to divide. So 4x squared divided by 2 is 2x squared. 14x divided by 2, 7x. And then 6 divided by 2. All right, so now it's kind of like we put this 2 on pause. So on my answer, because I always forget, and a lot of people always forget to write down the GCF, I'm going to set up my equation where my GCF is already written, so I could just forget about it. And now I can concentrate on factoring out the 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. So here we go. Let's label our A, our B, and our C. We've got 2, positive 2, positive 7, and positive 3. So our first step, multiply my A times my C. And that gives us a positive 6. And then the number on the bottom will be positive 7. So if we look at my top number, we have positive 6, which means we're going to be adding my factors. And the sign on the bottom tells me the sign for both. So let's come up with our factors. 1 and 6. And when we add them, does it give us 7? Yeah, and our sign is going to be positive. So over here, we're going to say x plus 1 and x plus 6. Now we go to our A. Remember, our A is 2. So we're going to divide this number by 2 and this number by 2. 1/2 does not divide evenly, so we're going to slide it to the front. So now we have 2x plus 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3, so we just write it like that. And now we're just going to write it in our answer spaces. You see how easy it is to forget your GCF? I had already forgotten about it. And this one, we've got x plus